the women that basically went to war in World War II and soldered all the ships together and screwed the heads on all the bullets. Okay, I'm saying that, this is part of the reason why we're seeing so much cataclysm happen in the offspring of these women because of what our foremothers and fathers did. You're going to have to start dealing with universal order and the repercussions of things, that when you send something out into the universe, it comes back to the origin. And I'm going to talk about blood so you can understand the origin. There is a law of cause and effect. There's no victims here. And so therefore, when our mothers send out waves into the universe, if she herself is not able to catch the benefit, whatever it is, of what she sent out, guess what? Because her children are her children catch it. And we're going to talk about that because you got to understand anatomy and how this works. So let's move through this. Okay. The evolutionary progress schedules mutation with a relentless continuity. Every living organism plays a part in the evolutionary design. There are 8 answers to the basic question, who am I and where am I going? In terms of genetic theology, the question is, in which direction am I mutating? That should be the question. In what direction are you mutating? I told you mine. I'm an immortalist. And whatever it takes for me to be here, I will be here. And I recognize that my form changes every day. Your diet has to change. I use my skin more for nutrition than I do my mouth now. Because one of the keys to be here is that you have to be able to ride the breath. You've got to breathe. And eating becomes second stance. So all of this information has been left for us, especially in the Kemetic legacy, Mayan legacy, etc., on the breath. And so all the people that are dealing with respiratory diseases, skin diseases, etc., sinusitis, you are creating interference in the direction of your genetic mutation. Because these are appendages, these are parts of your anatomy that are going to actually come forward and take major roles where other aspects of your anatomy are going to become atrophic. Okay. The genetic perspective is taboo and frightening because it forces us to face certain embarrassing facts. That the human species is an incomplete form which is undergoing dramatic changes. We are changing. And this is one of the things you have to be aware of. If you do not accept the change and mutation, quote, forward, then you will degenerate, de-evolve, and atrophy, which means that you will die. And most people actually degenerate. They do not allow themselves to mutate forward. Why? Because the information to do so is not known to who? The woman. And if she doesn't know that, then the culture is not established. Males and females are ill-raised, and you're out of here. Okay? So, the human race, and indeed life on the planet, is now at the halfway point. In 3 billion years, we have evolved from unicell organisms. In the years to come, we shall manifest changes much more dramatic. The rate of evolution is accelerating, and we know that. The human condition is changing at an accelerated rate in terms of physique, neurological function, ecology, density, and diversity of population, etc. Consider the human situation 25 years ago, 50 years ago, 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago, and 10,000 years ago. Now assume that the same rate of accelerated change continues. How will we evolve in the next 25 years, the next 1,000 years? And you and your state of consciousness determines this. You and your state of consciousness determines what your children are going to do. Okay, so whether you believe it or not, we're still homesteading. But now we're homesteading for our place in the galaxy. Check it out. Okay? Yeah. The evolutionary process produces an increasing spectrum of differentiation. The present human gene pool will evolve in many different directions. It is possible that hundreds or thousands of new species will evolve from the present human genetic stock. Now, we can take on stories about how sisters and brothers from other dimensions and from other galaxies have been here pinching off DNA for the last 25 years because of what happened in our future. So, I'm asking you all to honor what you know. Now, you sit up and you talk about the fact that everything was created in 6 days, so you can't tell me that the future don't already exist. Now, what is it? So the future exists if you go by that definition. Y'all go to church and read this every day, and y'all swear that the Bible is right. So if it's right, your future already exists. So you are here in a moment of eon of what you think is time, looking at your own future and determining that relative to your past. That's what I'm telling you I'm doing. So this is what you are basically here really to discuss. What is the future for yourself relative to your children? And truly you can see it all together. It has nothing to do with the fact that you don't have to be here to see it. But you have to be willing to make some changes and to allow some transformations. I don't like the word mutation. Most people think mutation means, ugly and whatever else. It's not that. It's a change and a relinquishing of what used to be. Because once you mutate, you can't go back to how you were. You understand what I'm saying? Once you mutate and change your diet, you can't go back and eat meat. Once the body is clear, that's over. You can't digest it anymore. It will kill you. Okay. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yeah. So once you start new breathing practices, you can't stop them. Once you activate certain segments of the brain, that lifestyle is sealed. You cannot not stop it. And so I'm saying, so that's when we talk about mutation, that when you move forward and make these shifts in your DNA, you are closing the book on an old lifestyle. That is what I call death, and you're not supposed to experience it in any other way. Okay. Now, the evolutionary process produces an increasing spectrum of differentiation, and we talked about that. The social implications are startling. Okay? Of the next 100 persons you meet, it is possible that each will evolve into a new species as different from you as the rabbit from the giraffe. About 75 million years ago, certain insectivore species, or lemurs, contained the seed force from which the 193 varieties of primates, including the human, were to emerge. To understand yourself, to understand the human situation, it is useful to project a prospectus of how the human species is going to evolve. Much of the conflict and confusion which characterizes the current human plight can be gentled and clarified if we accept the fact that we are genetically very different from each other and inexorably pre-programmed by DNA templates to evolve in our own way. And this is why I'm saying that we as Africans must demand our own standards. It can no longer be anyone else's standard. And as far as I'm concerned in medicine, this is why we don't do well going to Eurocentric medical structures, because the standard is Eurocentric. So I have studies here, and we'll get to those later, where they know that we have a different standard. Our blood quality is different, our standards for health are different, but every time you go into a present Eurocentric institution, they are asking you to become white. You have to basically now become white and become the age of that standard for that particular age group, weight group, etc. And if you don't honor their norm, they label you as having some type of disease, and they get busy treating you. Now, there's nothing wrong with you unless you fall out of your own standard. But your standard isn't used. And this is part of what one of my purposes is this lifetime, is to allow, just like that valley, that meadow that I saw at the base of Mount Rainier, that all of those flowers will be allowed, all of us as humans will be allowed to be evaluated by our own standards in the same hospital. And you have to understand, it's literally malpractice. In the United States, where we have hospitals that are servicing communities that are 100% African American, how can you have a Eurocentric standard over these people? There's no white people using the system. So why is this standard the standard? You automatically are going to set in a level of attrition and repress the proper growth and development of those individuals, because they're not even seen for who they are. So I'm saying that when I recognize that this information has been known, they've been doing this research on race specificity and differentiation since the 1900s, but it has not been taught in one medical school yet in America. The only standard that is taught is for Caucasians. And I was very upset when I recognized that I wanted to work with my own people. That's why I went to medical school. And I could have stayed in Omaha, Nebraska. I was the first female to be accepted there, but I didn't want to stay there. I wanted to help my own people. But when I recognized that I could not help them because I didn't know their standard, I was real upset after I paid for this, but I had to take responsibility because when I signed on the contract that I was going to go to the school, I didn't ask them, were you going to teach me the standard of people that I want to serve? You don't ask the question? Well, guess what?